it true, Ms. Chapman, that you had asked Katie Banks to babysit Millie, and she wouldn't?
No,
You
that's
never
not
asked?
true. No,
You didn't ask her that?
no, I did not.
Okay, so you didn't tell that to a defects worker?
No, I did not.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor. May the witness be excused?
Yes.
Thank you.
State calls next witness.
State calls Tammy Newman.
Tammy Newman. Right up here, please.
Ms. Newman, may I have you raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
If you could please state your name and then spell your name for the record.
Tammy Newman, TammyNewman.
Ms. Newman, how are you currently employed?
I'm a school counselor and a high school teacher.
And how long have you been a school counselor and high school teacher?
Well, this is my 5th year as a school counselor, my 4th year doing both jobs.
Was there a time that you worked for Pathways Transitions?
Yes.
And what is that, Pathways?
It is an agency that delivers mental health services.
And what did you do while you worked at Pathways?
I was a therapist.
And how long were you at Pathways?
2 years.
You indicated you were a therapist. Were you a therapist of, well, what kind of therapist were you?
I did therapy for adults and children, families.
Would you go to their homes or would they come to you?
Most of the time I would go to their homes. There were a few cases where clients would come to my office, but 99% of the time I would see them in the community, at home, in group homes, at school, daycare.
And how did you receive patients at Pathways?
Sometimes I would get patients by parents calling their Medicare provider, and then they would get a referral that way or through school counselors or DFACs.
Approximately what percentage of your clients came through DFACs?
Probably at least 50%.
And why is that?
Because Pathways had a contract with the state of Georgia. They were what is known in the industry as a core provider for services for those types of places like DFACs, the juvenile court system.
And when you say services, what kind of services are you talking about?
Therapy, assessments, family therapy.
So it would be fair to say mental health type services?
Yes.
Now, were you working at Pathways on June 29 of 2015?
Yes.
And at that time, did you receive a call, or some sort of communication from an individual named Samantha White?
I would have probably received that prior to that date, but yes.
And who is Samantha White?
At that time, she was a caseworker for Henry County DFACs.
And during the time period you worked at Pathways, would clients be referred to you through DFACs in Henry County?
Yes.
And would that happen through the caseworkers?
Yes.
And why did Ms. White contact you?
Well, specifically for this case, she wanted me to go out and meet with a foster parent who had some children in her care and to see if the girls needed therapy. And so at that time, she just sent the Shines referral, which was the referral for the services, to our main office, and then it was sent to me.
And on June 29 of 2015, did you go to the home of a Mrs. Lambert?
Yes.
And at that time, did you meet an individual named Millie Place?
Yes.
How old was Millie when you went to the home?
She must have been around 3, I'm thinking. I can't remember exactly.
Was she under the age of 5?
Yes.
And at that time, did you also meet an individual named Laila Daniel?
Yes.
And how old was she?
She was younger than Millie. I don't think she was quite 2 yet. Maybe she was 2.
During your visit to the Lamberts, did you speak with Ms. Lambert about why the children were in her care?
Yes, I had to do an assessment, like an intake. So yes, I would have asked that.
And when you do an assessment, what kind of information are you gathering?
Well, I just needed to know the background. In this case, because it was a defects case, I just needed to know the background and try to determine if there had, what type of trauma or issues had occurred in their lives. So I was just trying to get the background to figure out how they came into care.
And did you have any conversations with Millie Place?
I didn't really have a conversation with her. She did come in the room. I can't remember. It seems like she could talk, but I can't remember. It's been a long time and I can't remember exactly. Maybe she said hi.
Did you ever provide any therapy services for Millie and Layla?
No, I did not.
And what was the reason for that?
As a core provider, Pathways could not provide services to children under the age of 5 because those children can't receive a mental health diagnosis typically, and in order to provide core services, there has to be a DSM diagnosis.
And is this rule about having to receive a DSM diagnosis prior to providing services, was that a rule that Pathways put up, or was it a more global rule?
It's a more global rule with Medicaid.
And was June 29, 2015 the only time that you met Millie Place and Laila Daniel?
Yes,
And other than that, you had no further contact with the children?
I did not.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And cross.
Good afternoon, Ms. Newman. My name's Corinne Mull. I just have a few questions to ask of you. Layla was not talking at the time, was not able to talk. She was too young, correct?
She did not speak when I saw her.
And she was with the Lamberts at that time.
She was.
And the Lamberts were defects foster parent, correct?
Yes.
And this was in June, this was June 2nd of 2015. Does that seem about right?
I don't know what date it was. I don't have access to those records anymore.
Well, let me show you let me see if this refreshes your recollection.
It looks like this says June 29th.
June 29th.
That's what it looks like it says.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Well, I don't remember the specific date, but
Okay, but you-
I knew that it was in June.
You knew it was in June of 2015. And Ms. Lambert gave you a history, medical history, so to speak.
Not real. I don't think there was a medical history.
Was it a social history?
Maybe.
Okay. And she told you that
Objection.
well, it's a history given to a practitioner, a therapist. And
She didn't provide therapy.
no, but she was going to, and I think she did provide some.
Her role was that of a therapist for Pathways transition at the time. Responsible to see.
Your Honor, this witness testified that she never provided therapy services. She went out to assess, and it is hearsay. It's something that another individual told her.
And that individual is going to testify, Your Honor, so she'll be able to be cross-examined. Otherwise, I'd have to ask her to come back.
But this is related to diagnosis and treatment.
Yes.
That is part of the assessment. What will be checked?
Thank you. Ms. Lambert shared with you that Layla had anger problems, right?
Is that what it says on the paper?
Well, I'm asking you.
Well, I'm not going to be able to remember that. I haven't
Okay,
seen
well, see
any
if
of that.
this refreshes your recollection.
Well, that's what it says here.
Does what does it say there?
Foster mother shared that Layla appears to have anger problems.
Okay. And she told you that Layla had not really had any contact with her mom since her birth, correct?
Yes.
And she told you that her biological mother was on meth and her whereabouts were currently unknown, correct?
Yes.
And she told you that Layla bites and scratches her older sister and her foster siblings when she is mad.
Yes.
And she appears to have anger problems, especially related to food.
Yes.
And you spoke to Miss White at some point, correct?
I either spoke to her or emailed her. I don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall telling Miss White on July 14th, 2015, that Millie can be very grown and she likes to be in adult conversations?
I don't.
You don't recall? See
No.
if this refreshes your recollection.
That's what it says here.
And Millie can be very grown and likes to be in adult conversation. Isn't it true that you also said you were going to see if one of your coworkers could take over because you had challenges with Layla because she was not verbal?
Well, that's what it says here, though I do not believe that I said that to her.
Okay, so you don't recall saying that to her.
No.
And do you recall telling her that Layla was not verbal and that was perhaps the reason why she was so aggressive?
I don't specifically recall that, but I do think that I would say that.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
You follow?
Just briefly, the information that you received about Layla biting and being aggressive was from the foster mother?
Yes.
Was that anything you ever observed while you were over there?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. You can step down and your excuse. There's no objection. Hearing none, your excuse. Okay. Is this an appropriate time to take our mid-afternoon break, 15 minutes, afternoon break? Let's do that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, your excuse in the jury holding room. You're also free to go anywhere you'd like to, so long as you keep on admin.
Were you getting some feedback or something?
When she was playing audio earlier,
Okay, because it was not then, it was between witness. Well, she might have been up here, but she was being quiet. All of a sudden,
you heard some.
crackling,
I heard.
and it wasn't that.
No, the last witness.
Yeah.
I didn't hear it.
It was either before she came up or
Uh-huh.
right after she came up.
I
No?
didn't-
Okay.
Because I know some, nowadays with all the electronics, sometimes.
Yeah, they'll interfere with
something
each
close to
other.
computer.
Right.
I got you.
It didn't bother me.
No,
just
I
wondered
was
if you
good.
heard it.
Now, you mentioned that Layla lived with you.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how that came to be?
We were asked if we could babysit while Tessa was at work, and we ended up having her for 2 weeks. And then when Tessa came back 2 weeks after we'd had her, she took her for less than 24 hours, and Regina had asked me to come and pick her back up. And shortly thereafter, I was made the safety resource through DFACS.
Okay, we're going to unpack that just a little bit, okay? I want to go back to the very beginning when she first came in and to live with you. Who asked you to, if you could watch her?
Regina.
Okay. And do you know where Regina or Tessa were going to be?
Regina was working, and Tessa was working, and then she wasn't.
Okay. And were you watching her during the day or at nighttime?
I was there at night, at home.
And you mentioned initially you watched her for how long?
She was with us for 2 weeks initially.
And how long was she supposed to stay with you initially?
It was just supposed to be while we were working.
You mentioned that, was it Tessa that came back after that 2 week period?
Yes.
And how long did Tessa keep her once she came back?
About 24 hours.
And you mentioned that that Layla was then back in your custody?
Yes, sir.
All right. Who brought her back?
I went and picked her up from Regina's house in Hampton.
And was Tessa there when you picked her up?
No.
And did you know how long that you would be watching Layla at that point?
No, not at that time.
Was it supposed to be open-ended, or had they given you some kind of definitive date?
It was just open-ended.
Why did you agree to watch Layla for them?
So she wouldn't keep getting bounced around to different places.
Tell me a little bit about the people who lived in your home.
It was my daughter and me, and my daughter's boyfriend was there off and on.
And who is your daughter?
Tiffany Chapman, or it's now Tiffany Shaw.
And were there any children that also lived in the house?
Yes, my grandson Lucas.
And how old was your grandson Lucas?
Him and Layla are the same age. He was getting ready to turn 1.
Are you familiar with the child by the name of Millie Place?
Yes.
And who is that person?
That is Layla's oldest sister.
And I should ask you, did Millie ever come and live with you as well?
Yeah, we had her for about 2 weeks.
Was that at the same time that Layla began living with you, or some other time?
That was later.
Okay. So when Layla first began living with you, do you know where Millie was residing?
To my understanding, she was with her great-grandmother, Peggy Banks.
Did Millie ever come over and visit while Layla was living with you?
No.
Did you ever take Layla over to where Millie was staying?
Once.
Did either her mother, Tessa, or her grandmother come and visit Layla while she was living with you?
The grandmother came once, and then Tessa came a little later and stayed for a few days.
Okay. Now, at this point, was DFACS involved at all in Layla's life?
Yes.
And can you tell me how they became involved in Layla's life?
I'm really not sure. I got a call from them one day, asked them if they could come do a home visit.
Okay. Prior to that, were you receiving any assistance to watch Layla?
No.
And when I mean assistance, I mean from the government?
No.
Were her mother or any of her family providing any financial assistance for you to watch her?
No, sir.
So you said that you got a call from DFACS and they wanted to come do a home visit. Did they actually come and do that?
Yes, they did.
And did Layla remain in your care after that?
Yes, sir.
About how long did Layla remain in your care after that?
Until about May of 2015.
When you mentioned that Tessa also lived with you for a short period of time, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall about when that was during this period?
That was right at the end of me having Layla. We had went to court, and the judge stated that if Tessa was going to be in home, that I could not have Tessa and Layla in the same household. I was trying to get Tessa into a living sober program.
Okay. And I can't remember if I asked you this or not. Do you recall about what month and year that Layla began living with you?
It was in July. It was July 20th of 2015. It was 3 days before my grandson's first birthday.
And are you certain it was 2015?
No, it's 2014. Sorry.
That's okay. So Tessa, you said, lived with you towards the end of that period, correct?
Yeah, she was there for about less than a week.
And then you had to go to court.
Yes.
Was after DFACS came out and did the home visit, were you made any sort of designation for Layla?
I was named the safety resource.
And did they explain to you what that meant?
That she was I was the safety resource for her. I was her safe haven.
And did she continue to live with you?
Yes.
All right. At that point, did the state contribute anything towards her care?
No, sir.
tell me about how Millie. Tell me about Layla. The last time that, or the last day that Layla was living with you. How did she come to move out?
When we went to court, they were supposed to be taking her into state custody for the first time to place her in foster care.
So up until that time, she actually had never been in the foster care system. Is that correct? All right. And were you considered to be a foster parent?
No.
All right. And at that point, did you want to continue to be a foster parent?
No, not at that point.
And why was that?
DFACS was very intrusive.
Okay. And so, did you go to court that day?
Yes, sir.
All right. And do you know where Layla went after that particular day?
She was supposed to be going with an aunt of Layla's father. I don't remember her name.
I want to ask you a little bit more about while Layla was living with you.
Mm-hmm.
Did Layla ever have any medical issues?
No, sir.
Was she walking?
Yes.
How well was she walking?
She was walking very well.
And about how old was she when she came to live with you?
She had just turned a year old. She was a year and 2 days.
Did her walking get better as she lived with you?
Oh, yes.
Are you the one who cared for her?
I would care for her when I got home from work. My daughter was the main caretaker during the day.
Did you ever bathe Layla?
Yes.
Did you ever change Layla?
Yes.
At any point when when she was in your care, did you ever see any signs of physical abuse?
No.
Did you ever see any bruising?
No.
I wanted to show you what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit 45. And if I put it towards the top. If I can orient you to here, is this portion of her body something that you were familiar with?
No, sir.
Okay. So had you ever seen that area of discoloration on her skin?
No, sir.
At any point during the time she lived with you?
No, sir.
When you first got Layla, when she first came to live with you, were you also the person who would bathe her or change her?
Yes, sir.
At that point, did you ever notice any signs of abuse when she first started coming to live with you?
No, sir.
Now, did you ever help change or bathe Millie?
Yes.
And on those occasions when you helped change or bathe Millie, did you ever see any signs of physical abuse with Millie?
No, sir.
Did you ever observe any injuries to Millie?
No, sir.
And after Layla left your home, did you ever have any other contact with her after she left your home?
No, sir.
Ma'am, do you know Jennifer Rosenbaum?
No.
Do you know Joseph Rosenbaum?
No.
Nothing further this time.
You talked about Layla's grandmother. Did you mean great-grandmother?
Great-grandmother, well, grandmother and great-grandmother.
But the great-grandmother was Peggy Banks, is
Correct.
that correct? And did she ever come to visit Layla at your place?
No.
And I understand you did take Layla to her house?
One time, yes, ma'am.
Okay. But she never came to see Layla after that one time?
No, ma'am.
And you kept Layla when her mother went to jail as well, correct?
Yes.
And while you had Layla, did anyone make reports about you to DFACS?
I would not know.
Did you ever talk to DFACS and talk to them about Peggy having suggested you were drinking?
The last time they came out, yes.
And you talked to them about that because Peggy, you said the whole family lies and you didn't want to have anything to do with them anymore, correct?
I don't remember exact verbiage, but I did say I did not want to have anything else to do with the family, yes.
You remember stating that you are tired of dealing with the whole family and at this point will keep Layla in the home until another placement is found.
Correct.
Do you recall stating that Peggy, the maternal great-grandmother, is the person behind making false claims that I'm drinking and had a man in the home?
I don't recall.
You don't recall whether you said that or not?
No, ma'am.
Would it help you to refresh your recollection?
We can try. Yeah, I probably did say that.
And did you say that the grandmother, Peggy Banks, lies?
Yes.
Because that was in fact the truth. She
No.
lies.
Yeah, because that, I mean,
That wasn't true what she told
no,
defects.
it was not.
Okay. Did she ever call and inquire about Layla?
No,
Isn't it true that the only time she wanted Layla was when she needed a babysitter for Millie?
she never wanted Layla.
She never wanted Layla.
No,
And do you know why that is?
no,
Now, there came a time you had Millie and Layla together.
yes,
And there came a time when you could no longer care for Millie because of her behavior problems, right?
yes.
And you took her to Peggy Banks.
I think Peggy came and picked her up.
Came and picked her up.
Yeah, because Millie only wanted to be with Peggy. Did not want to be with anyone but Peggy.
Okay. And at some point, you couldn't keep Layla anymore, could you? I mean, you stopped having Layla at some point, correct?
Yeah, at the end.
At the end.
When the state took her into state custody, yes.
Do you remember telling DeMarcus Blunt, the defects worker, that Peggy would visit the children, but only kept Millie?
No,
You don't remember that?
no.
Now, Layla gets blotches of discolored skin when she has vitamin C, isn't that correct?
I never gave her vitamin C, so I would not know.
But did you not tell them, defects, that when you give her orange juice, she gets blotches of discolored skin?
No,
Do you recall talking to Misha Robertson on March 15th, 2015?
so, and who is she again?
Defects caseworker.
Yes,
And do you recall telling her that Peggy is a spiteful woman?
yes.
I want to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 11. Can you, and I don't know if you can or not, but can you identify Defendant's Exhibit 12?
Yes, that is Layla in her Halloween costume.
And what year would that be?
That would be 2014.
Let me show you Defendant's Exhibit 11 and see if you can recognize that.
Yes, that's outside of my home.
And who is in the picture?
That would be Michelle and Scott Chapman, me, Scott's daughter Brittany, my daughter, my grandson, Millie and Layla.
Let me tender into evidence, Your Honor, Defendant's Exhibit 11 and 12.
The objection to 11 and 12. No objection. Amen.
Ask if I may publish,
May
Your Honor.
publish.
Could we have the- Is that what you meant by Layla's Halloween costume?
Yes,
Is that Layla in her aunt's hands or her?
that's her aunt,
Her
yes.
aunt's hands? And is that the picture of your family
Yes,
with Layla and Millie?
yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
It's safe to say you didn't have the highest opinion of Ms. Banks. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. The defense counsel asked you about vitamin C and if she would break out in a rash. So I just want to show you some photos, okay? Did you ever observe anything like this on Layla when you saw her?
No,
So if she had orange juice, she didn't look like that?
no, sir.
If we can have the lights. Showing you states 52. When Layla had vitamin C, did you ever see anything like that?
No, sir.
Your Honor, I object to this line of questioning. She testified she did not give her vitamin C, so she does not know what it would look like. So comparing it to some other picture is not, is immaterial, it's irrelevant, and it's not subject to, that's enough. Thank you.
Judge, they opened the doors to. I'm just testing to see whether she saw anything consistent with some sort of rash that the defense seems to insinuate that Layla had.
There was a question that you asked that seemed to suggest that perhaps the witness had given the child vitamin C, and you were probing her knowledge of whether or not there was discoloration related there. And so for that reason, I'm going to allow this on question.
Showing you state 70, closer up on the back. I just apologize to have to do this to you. Did you see anything like that on Layla?
No, sir.
Showing you states 29, which is on her neck. Did you ever see anything like that on Layla? Did she perhaps had vitamin C?
No, sir.
If I want more to show you. Showing you states 54. Did you ever happen to see anything like that on Layla?
No, sir.
Nothing further.
Okay. Any recross?
No.
Thank you. You can step down. Be careful. Watch your step. Is there any objection to this witness being excused?
Nothing state.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. State your calls. Next witness.
State calls Tiffany Shaw.
Tiffany Shaw. Right up here, please.
If you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Put your hand down. Please state your true and correct name for the record.
It's Tiffany Shaw.
And can you just spell it for us?
TIFFANYSHAW.
Okay. And ma'am, what kind of work do you do?
I'm a customer service representative.
Okay. I want to ask you about a couple people, okay? Are you familiar with well, first of all, who's your mother?
Cynthia Tate.
Okay. And are you familiar with the person named Tessa Daniel, who used to be known as Tessa Clendenning?
I am.
And how did you know Tessa?
I had met her, our moms worked together, so I met her there. She was actually also working there at the time when I met her.
Okay. Did you know a person by the name of Laila Daniel?
I did.
And how did you know Layla?
We cared for her for quite some time.
You asked her to speak up.
We cared for her for quite a while.
Okay. Can you tell us just a little bit about how she came to live with you?
Her grandmother, Gina Banks, had asked my mom, Cindy, if I might be able to watch her for a couple of days to give her a break because Tessa wasn't there at the time. And my mom agreed. And we ended up having her for about 2 weeks before they came to pick her up. And then she was only gone for about 24 hours. And then Gina called and asked my mom if we would be willing to come pick her back up because Tessa had left and she didn't know when she was coming back.
Okay. So did Layla come to live with you?
At that point, yeah, we got her a crib and she came to live with us.
Okay. And again, your voice kind of trails off a little, so if you could...
We got her, that was when we went ahead and got a crib for her and started making a room for her.
Okay. Who else lived in the home?
It was me and my mother.
Any children in the home?
My son, Lucas.
Okay. And how old was Lucas?
He was a year old at the time. When we first got Layla, he was actually getting ready to turn a year old 3 days later.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 102. For identification purposes, it's previously been shown to defense. Do you recognize State's 102? Just say yes out loud.
Yes.
Okay. What do you recognize it to be?
That's my couch. My son sitting on the couch with Layla.
And is this a photograph that you took?
It is.
And have there been any modifications, alterations, or deletions to this photograph?
No.
Your Honor, I move to admit States 102.
No objection. Submitted. You may pause.
Thank you, Judge. So who is this we are looking at in the photograph?
That's Lucas and Layla watching probably Curious George.
Okay. So you mentioned that you cared. Tell me a little bit about the care arrangements while you watched Layla.
I wasn't working at the time because my son was still very little. So I cared for Layla along with him while my mom was at work, and also, throughout the night if they woke up or anything like that. And
Tell me, how was Layla as a 1-year-old child? How would you describe her?
happy, just like any other 1-year-old. She was. It was like having twins because they're 1-year-olds. They were very similar.
Did you ever have any problems with Layla?
No.
How would you describe her health when she lived with you?
Perfect.
And about when did she come and live with you?
That would have been July of 2014.
And altogether, how long did she live with you?
She was with us from July until May of the next year, so I guess that's about 9 months or so, or maybe a little more.
Now, did her biological family ever come over and visit?
I remember they came for Thanksgiving, and there were a few of them then.
Do you remember who they were?
I believe it was Gina Banks, Tessa, Caitlin Daniel. That's all I remember.
Okay. And so Peggy Banks is what relation to, Gina Banks is what relation to Layla?
She was her maternal grandmother.
Is that the only time that you can recall that the family came over?
Yeah.
Did they call, check in on Layla?
Gina did. And I think Tessa was getting updates from her about Layla. I never really talked to Tessa much.
Okay. Do you know where Tessa was?
No.
Did Tessa ever come and stay with you?
She did for a little while. I want to say less than 2 weeks. And then we had a meeting with DFACS, and they said that it was inappropriate for her to be in the home with Layla during the case that they had open with DFACS because she could be left unattended with Layla, which is something they didn't want.
Around what time frame was Tessa living in the same home? Let me ask this. Was it towards the beginning of when Layla was there or towards the end?
Kind of in the middle, I believe. The timeline is it's been a while, so.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
When did DFACS, to your recollection, when did DFACS first become involved?
We had her for a couple of months already before DFACS was even aware of her whereabouts, as far as I know. And that's when they found us and started wanting to do the home visits and all of that.
And did you all do those home visits?
Yeah, we complied with everything they asked.
Ultimately, did you all have an interest in continuing as foster parents for Layla?
We did, up to a point.
Okay. And then at that point, you no longer... tell me what happened.
We became extremely uncomfortable with the amount of home visits and phone calls we were getting, and they wanted us to repeat drug screens and do the evaluation of the home again, and the home visits we were fine with, but they were also wanting to view my son as well as Layla.
What do you mean by they wanted to view your son?
They would make me take his diaper off as well and show him undressed to show that the kids weren't being abused, is what we were told.
And how did that make you feel?
Extremely uncomfortable, because I had never been under investigation by child services, so.
And when we say under investigation, were you under investigation at that point?
No, but it felt like it.
I want to talk a little bit about Layla's. You mentioned that Layla was healthy when she lived with you, correct? Mm-hmm. How was she mobile? Was she able to walk around?
Yeah, she was walking.
I want to show you states 101, 103, and 104. Do you recognize states 101, 103, and 104?
Yes.
And what do you recognize?
These are pictures also taken in my home of Layla, as well as myself in the background, and Millie and my son.
And are those photographs that you took?
Yes, they are.
Have there been any modifications to these photographs?
No.
Your Honor, I move to admit states 101, 103, and 104. What are we looking at in states 101?
I was playing with her, Lucas in the pool.
And who is it that we see in the forefront there?
Layla.
What are we looking at in states 103?
It looks like they were eating lunch.
And can you help identify the people who are in the photograph?
Layla's in the high chair. My son is, and Millie are sitting at the table.
So did Millie come over at times?
We actually ended up having Millie for a little while when she was in between other placements.
Okay. About how long did you have Millie?
I think we only had Millie for, I want to say it was less than a month that Millie was there.
Do you know where she went to after she lived with you?
I know she stayed with Scott and Michelle Chapman and also with Peggy Banks. I don't remember which order particularly she was moved around.
And what are we looking at in states 104?
That is Millie and Layla together on my couch.
That's the photograph that you took?
It is.
Do you know if this was during the period of time when Millie was living there as well?
It is.
During the period of time that Millie was living there, did you have occasion to change her or bathe her?
Millie?
Yes.
Would help her get a bath, yeah.
Did you ever observe on Millie any signs of physical abuse that you can think of?
No.
What about when Layla was living with you? Did you ever change her or bathe her during all those months?
Yeah, every day.
Every day. And did you ever see any signs of physical abuse?
No.
I want to show you what's been previously admitted into evidence of State Exhibit 45. This area, you okay? This area right here that I'm pointing to, is that something that you've seen before? Is that a mark that you have seen before?
No, that wasn't there when she was with me.
After Layla, after Layla was no longer living with you, do you know where she went?
I think she went to stay with the Browns first after she left us.
Did you continue to keep in contact with her?
No.
Did you keep in contact with any of her family members after that in the months leading up to her death?
Only Caitlin Daniel.
Nothing further at this time.
No questions. Thank you, ma'am. You can sit. Any objections for this being excused?
Nothing stated.
Okay. And you're free to go. State calls next witness.
State calls Dr. John Potts.
Dr. John Potts.
Good afternoon, Dr. Have you raised your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. If you could please state your name for the record.
John Potts.
And Dr. Potts, how are you employed?
Self-employed in Fayetteville and Fayetteville and Hampton now.
And how are you employed?
A pediatrician.
And do you have your own practice?
Yes.
How long have you held your own practice?
Since 1978.
And in those years from 1978 to today, have you always worked in pediatrics?
Yes.
And prior to opening your own practice in 1978, how were you employed?
I worked from 76 to 78 with Dr. Alan Sievert in East Point. Before that, I was in the U.S. Navy for 2 years, and then residency before that.
And what was your residency in?
Pediatrics.
Now, in your practice, is it customary to write will document every time a child comes in?
Yes.
And is it customary to document the reasons why a child is coming to see you?
Yes.
Is it also your practice to document any concerns you may have regarding child abuse?
Yes.
Have you been trained to look for signs of child abuse?
Yes.
And are you a mandated reporter?
I think I understand what you mean. Yes.
And what does that mean?
I think it means that if I see abuse, I should report it. I'm obligated legally to report it.
Is there ever a time that you've had suspicions or concerns of child abuse as it related to one of your patients?
Yes, a number of times.
And did you document your concerns in those cases?
Yes.
And did you report those concerns?
Yes.
Do you ever treat a patient by the name of Laila Daniel, with the date of birth of July 18, 2013?
Yes.
How many times did you see Layla?
She was seen in our office 4 times.
And were those 4 visits documented?
Yes.
At this time, I state Tender States Exhibit 105 in evidence. It is the self-authentic authenticating medical records for Layla Daniel.
No objection. 3 minutes. 105.
105. And on July 26, 2013, was that the first date that you saw Layla Daniel?
Yes, as an 8-day-old. It was an after delivery checkup.
What is a well child check?
It's when you see the child for a scheduled well child exam in contrasted to a sick visit like with fever.
And at the time that you saw Layla on July 26, 2013, how much did she weigh?
I can look, but I think I remember 7 pounds 12 ounces. Her birth weight was 7 pounds 10 ounces.
And what was her height?
I'll have to look. I don't remember that.
Dr. Potts, previous to today, you had taken some notes to kind of summarize Layla's medical chart.
Yes.
Would those assist you in discussing her medical history today?
Yes, it would help.
And do you have those with you?
Yes.
And just to make sure that we are, I did provide a copy of these to the defense. Are these the two summaries that you are using?
Yes. Yeah, these are 2 of the summaries,
And
yes.
these are for,
This is just a summary of both of them. This is Layla's.
I will mark for identification purposes the summary for both children as 106 and the summary for Layla as 107. And looking at your summary, are you able to tell us how tall Layla was at the time?
Her length was 20.5 inches.
And on July 26th of 2013, did you conduct a full body exam of Layla?
Yes.
And did you have any concerns with regards to Layla at that time?
No.
Any suspicions of abuse on that day?
No.
And who brought Layla in on July 26th?
From my notes, it appears that the mother did. It said, Mom plans to formula feed.
When was the next time that you saw Layla?
The next visit was 5/16/2014.
So almost a year later?
9 months, roughly.
And what was the purpose of the visit on May 16th?
She came in because of a rash.
And what type of rash did she have?
I did not see her. Somebody in the office saw her, and it was classical of hand, foot, and mouth disease.
What is hand, foot, and mouth?
It's a Coxsackie virus that you get little red bumps in a number of places, but primarily the mouth, the hands, the feet, but it can be pretty widely spread at times.
And how common is hand, foot, and mouth with children that age of Layla, about 1%?
It's very common.
And how does one get hand, foot, and mouth?
You'd catch it from someone else, probably another child.
that, when a child comes in with a rash, as Layla did on May 16, 2014, is it customary for you to observe the child without the coat?
Yes.
And according to your records, was that done on May 16, 2014?
I did not see her. The note was just the vesicles on the palms, the soles, and the mouth. So I assume that he did, but I did not see her.
On that May 16, 2014 note, was there any other concerns regarding Layla?
No, and they did not do a weight check because they don't usually on sick visits unless they're throwing up or having diarrhea.
When was the third time Layla came to your practice?
August 19th, 2014, so it was about 8 months later. No, it was 3 months later, 1914.
And what was the purpose of Layla's visit on August 19, 2014?
She was here for a well checkup and a well checkup.
And on that day, did she get any shots?
She did. She had been, the only shot she had gotten since birth was the one in the hospital, hepatitis B shot. At our office that day, she got about 5 shots.
When Layla came to your practice on August 19, 2014, was there anything noted of concern?
The exam was totally normal, and again, Ron Thompson saw her then, except there was a small red nodule on the right labial area that he thought might be either chronic infection or something called a hemangioma. He did not feel like it needed to be treated. He referred her to a dermatologist.
What is a hemangioma?
It's a collection of blood vessels. We use terms like strawberry birthmark, things of that nature. It doesn't have to be there at birth. Usually, though, within the first year of life, it appears.
So a child can be born without one and then
Yeah.
get one. And do the hemangiomas disappear at all or resolve themselves?
The vast majority of them disappear on their own and sometimes pretty quickly.
And is there anything that about a hemangioma that would be cause for concern?
No,
regarding the child's
no.
health?
There was no indication of bruising, but again, he said it might be a hemangioma. So
Was Layla's blood or hemoglobin tested on August 19 of 2014?
yes, and it was normal. It was 11.6.
And is it customary to test a child's blood?
In our practice, we check it at 9 months and then at 2 and yearly after that. She apparently, from what we could tell, did not have a 9-month well checkup, so that's why we did it at the 13-month checkup.
If a child had a low hemoglobin result, what would that mean?
It could mean that they were not taking in enough iron in their diet, or they were not absorbing it normally. Usually they're not taking in enough iron, and it's not real uncommon.
Now, the August 19, 2014 visits, was there any concern regarding child abuse?
No, none whatsoever.
What was the fourth and final date that you saw?
The fourth and final visit was April the 30th, 2015. And that was for a 21-month well checkup, which is, we normally do it at 18 and 24 months, but she came in a little bit late. The exam was normal except for a runny nose. She had been seen by a pediatrician or a physician somewhere else and been put on amoxicillin. I told her to finish the amoxicillin, and I added Claritin and 5 days of something called Orpred. And that was the last time that we saw her, but the exam was normal.
And during that visit, did you check Layla from head to toe?
Yes.
And on April 30th of 2015, you didn't have any concerns regarding
No,
child
no, not at all.
abuse? Now, on May 11 of 2015, were Layla's records sent to Eagles Landing?
Yes.
Who made that request?
The legal guardians, whoever that was.
Now,
On the August 19th visit, we had a note that she was staying at that time with guardians.
did Layla have less than the recommended well checks?
Yes, unless she was getting them somewhere that we were not aware of.
So it's possible she was getting them somewhere else.
Yeah, but it seemed to be clear that she was not getting shots, which would be the main reason to get the well checkup. So she probably was not getting the checkups.
As of April 30th, 2015, actually, let me ask you something else. Were you able to document when Layla got her shots?
Yeah, our records showed she got one at 2 days of age, which had to be in the hospital, and then she got, may I look at the records? She got several from us on that August 19th, 2014 visit. They left our practice around the first day of May. She got 5 shots on the 18th of May of that year, and then she got 3 shots on the 29th of June of that year, somewhere else.
And how is it that you were able to have a document in your file from June 29th, 2015?
They're supposed to put all shots from any office or health department in something called GRIS, which is registers all the shots given to anybody in the state of Georgia.
And that's something that you as a doctor have access to?
Yes.
As of November 2015, would Layla have been current on her shots?
See, that would make her, it'd make her, what, 2 years and 3 months? 1, 2, 3. It appears to, yeah.
So other than keeping up with well checks, did you have any other concerns regarding Layla?
No.
Now, do you actually have an independent memory of Layla visiting the office?
Not honestly.
So there's nothing about Layla's visits that stood out in your memory?
No.
So they're pretty standard?
Yes.
And at this time, I tender State's Exhibit 108 into evidence. Those are self-authenticating records regarding
Submitted. States 108 submitted.
And Doctor, do you have your notes on Millie as well?
Yes,
And would you like to use those when talking about her history with your office?
I can use them partly, at least.
You can use them what?
I can use them some and not use them some, depending on the question.
Okay, sounds good. And with Millie, how many times did you see Millie?
We saw Millie 22 times. Some of those may have just been for vaccinations that the provider actually didn't see her.
And how many times did you see Millie in 2012?
1, 2, 3. 7 times.
And what were the dates that you saw Millie in
Okay.
2012?
1, 6, 12, 2, 14, 12, 3, 1, 12, 5, 14, 12, 7, 10, 12, 10, 9, 12, 12, 19, 12.
In Millie's records for the year 2012, was there any concerns of child abuse?
No.
And during Millie's 2012 visits, which you've been checked from head to toe?
Yes.
Now, in 2013, how many times did your practice see Millie?
1, 2, 3, 3 times.
And what were those dates?
1, 10, 13, 3, 7, 13, and 9, 11, 13.
And in 2013, was there any concern for child abuse noted in Millie's charts?
No.
And would Millie have been checked head to toe?
Yes.
How many times did you see Millie in 2014?
Just 1 time.
And when was that?
6, 3, 14.
And why did you see her on 6/3/14?
In my summary, she had vomiting and diarrhea. I can pull up the actual visit if you want.
That's okay. Let me ask you this. Was there any concern on that visit for child abuse?
No.
Now, in 2015, how many times did your office see Millie?
2 times.
And what were those dates?
4, 15, and 4:30, 15.
Give me those dates again.
Oh, 4, and 4:30.
And on those visits, was Millie checked head to toe?
4, she was given a shot by the nurse, so no. 4:30. She was in for a sick visit, so probably she didn't take her panties off. But I did check from the waist up. She was there for a cough and runny nose.
And on May 11, 2015, did you transfer Millie's records?
Yes,
And was that also to Eagles Landing?
I assume so.
In 2016, though, you saw Millie how many times?
4 times.
And what were those dates?
7/7, 10/17, 12/8, and 12/14.
And on those days, was there any concern for child abuse?
No.
Then in 2017, how many times did you see Millie?
I believe it was 5 times.
And do you have those dates as well?
1/29, 3/27, 5/1, 7/5, 11/9, and 11/27. Did I count wrong? No, yeah, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, yeah, but there wasn't a 1/29.
That was 5 times.
Yes.
And what was the purpose of Millie's November 9, 2017 visit?
November the 9th, a swollen ankle. The provider, who was not me, felt like it was a mildly sprained ankle. She was seen 18 days later, 17 days later, and the ankle sprain was gone, ankle swelling.
Why was she seen 17 to 18 days later?
For a cough and runny nose and fever.
Was there a history or reason given for the ankle pain?
Let me pull that up. It just said Millie presents with ankle swelling, right ankle. Again, the day before, the precipitating event appears to have been running, although the actual mechanism of injury was unknown. This is the 3rd time within the past month that she has done this to the same ankle on the playground, and they just treated with just rest and ice and ibuprofen.
Now, in 2017, did you have any concerns for?
No.
Is there anything about Millie's visits that stood out in your memory?
Any of the visits? No, she was at 4 months of age. She had 2 small emphytiginous lesions on her shoulder that was treated with a topical antibiotic ointment, and she had a mild bacterial infection that was resolving at 7 months and at, I believe, 15 months. That was treated with an oral antibiotic, but no evidence that we saw of child abuse.
You said there was something on her shoulder. What exactly?
Impetigo is a superficial bacterial infection that's common in children, particularly in the summertime.
And does it go away with treatment?
It's always best to treat it. Sometimes it'll go just with good hygiene.
And you also noted that she came in with a couple times with a mild bacterial infection.
Yeah, that was when she was 7 months and when she was 15 months.
Is that something that you would see on her skin? Or?
Yeah, it was a little vesicular, little bumpy thing.
And is that a common infection for children that age?
Yeah, you see it. It's not uncommon.
And how is that treated?
Usually with either topical or oral antibiotic or both.
Now, between July 24 of 2015 and November 17 of 2015, did you ever see Millie place in the practice?
Ask the question again, the times.
The date range I'm asking about is July 24, 2015 to November 17, 2015.
No, we saw her 4/30/15, and the next time we saw her was July of 16.
July of 2016.
2016, yeah.
And when is the last saw Layla?
You mean Millie or Layla?
Layla.
Layla. The last time I saw her was 4:30:15.
Doctor, you had mentioned some rashes or infections that the girl has. And I'm going to show you what's previously been marked as State's Exhibit 70. Those rashes you were describing, does this appear like those rashes? Yeah, if you look behind you, you'll see it on
Okay.
the screen.
No, it didn't. What we saw does not look like any of that.
I'm also going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 45. Does that look like any of the rashes that you saw?
No, no.
And now I'm going to put on State's Exhibit 80. Does that look like the rashes that you described?
No.
State's Exhibit 78. Does that look like the rashes you described?
No.
Thank you, Doctor. No further questions. Oh, I'm sorry. One more question. Doctor, on State's Exhibit 80, if you had seen these injuries on a child as a mandatory reporter, would you have been able to?
Yeah, yes, we would have been obligated to.
And as to State's Exhibit 78, if you saw that injury with no explanation, would you have made a report?
Yes.
Doctor, as to State's 45, if you had seen these injuries on a child, would you have made a report?
Yes.
As to State's 70, if you had seen those injuries on a child's back, would you have made a report of child?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, Cross.
Good afternoon, Dr. Fox. My name is Glenn Mall. I have any questions that I'm asking you before we go on. I wanted to ask you about the visit of 7/26/2013.
Okay.
And at that visit, it was not true the child came in for congestion and constipation, correct?
Yes.
And the mother said that sometimes the child gasps as if she cannot breathe.
Yes.
And that was her mother who said that.
Yes.
And we want to turn to December 14th, 2016. And this would be for Millie.
Okay. You said December 14th,
December 14th,
2016. Okay.
2016.
Mm-hmm.
Who brought her in at that time?
Let's see if I've got. Oh, I'm pretty sure it's the great grandmother, but let me see if. The great grandmother.
And the great-grandmother brought her in for what reason on that day?
She was concerned about her being significantly hyperactive and not able to control her at home.
And did she in fact say that did you in fact write that she was desperate because child is lying, impulsive, and argumentative?
The main problems she's having currently include fidgeting, inability to stay seated in class, inattentiveness, inability to stay on task, impulsivity, forgetfulness, refusal to do assigned task at home, and argumentative temperament with parents. And other problems include lying. Yes.
In fact, you wrote great-grandmother desperate because child is lying.
I said great-grandmother is desperate. I didn't add to that.
But you said she was desperate.
Yes.
She wasn't desperate for any other reason. She's desperate because her child is lying and argumentative.
Because of the behavior, yes.
Behavior. And she told you that she saw this behavior 2 years ago when she had her, and she's seen it again.
Yes.
And then we'll turn to March 9th, 2018. Who brought her?
March 9th of
3/9/2018.
I don't think we saw her. We didn't see her in 18 that I...
Did she not come in for a swollen ankle, which was the third time in the past month?
Not in 18. It was 11/9/17.
11/9/17?
Yes.
Swollen ankle?
Yes.
Third time within the past month?
Yes, that's what they said. That's the only time we saw her.
And that was, when you say that's what they said, who's they?
Let me look back and see. 11/9/17. Let me read it out to you. And actually, I wasn't the one that saw it. It says, Millie presents with ankle swelling. It's primarily in the right ankle. Swelling is noted to be mild. It began yesterday. The precipitating event appears to have been running, although the actual mechanism of injury is unknown. This is the third time within the past month that she has done this to the same ankle. Injured initially 4 weeks ago on the playground. Twisted it, treated with RICE, RICE, and Motrin. No improvement, keeps re-injuring it. And the provider felt like it was a mild sprain, treated it with rest and ice, elevation, and told her to continue to take an ibuprofen. And then when I saw her, that was the 9th. When I saw her on the 27th, there was no swelling of the ankle, no complaints of the ankle.
And did you, in fact, order X-rays to be taken?
I saw that in the report, and I don't know if it was actually done or not. So,
That you ordered?
the provider ordered it, yes.
I'm sure it's been marked as a defendant's exhibit 13. We ask you if you can identify defendants exhibit 13.
Yeah, it's Millie. It said some swelling, but I don't see any fracture. But yeah, this was apparently, and this was done November 9th, so it was done the same day.
Okay. And is that an order for an X-ray?
Yes, I'm just trying to look. Yeah, it is an order for an X-ray.
Thank you. The defendants exhibit 13 into the record.
Oh, no.
Anybody?
Yeah, I published one.
Okay.
Is this the order for X-ray?
Yes.
And who was the child living with at the time these injuries occurred?
I don't know that I know the answer to that.
Was it the great-grandmother again?
I'm thinking it was the great-grandmother, but I'm not sure. It's not noted on that, is it?
And Dr. Potts' children injured themselves all through their childhood.
Yes,
correct? Some children are rougher than others.
absolutely.
Some are more rough and tumble.
Yes.
And some are very adventuresome and pile chairs on top of beds and try to reach fans and
Yeah.
that sort of thing and fall down, don't they?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Are you correct?
Dr. Potts, is the consistent with running on the playground and twisting there.
Yes, sir.
And do you see that often with young children?
Yes.
And as to State's Exhibit 18, would you consider that consistent with rough and tumble child play?
No.
Would you consider that consistent with climbing on some chairs and playing with a fan or something like that?
No, I don't think so.
No further questions?
Dr. Cox, how about sliding down the rungs of a ladder the wrong way? Could that have caused these bruises?
I think it would be more likely some type of abuse, but I couldn't rule it out of every situation.
You couldn't rule out that it was from a fall from a ladder hitting the rungs as she's going down.
I think it'd be unlikely, honestly.
Okay, but it's possible.
It's perhaps possible.
Thank you.
If a child fell down in a way that the defense described, would you expect the child to tell you how they injured themselves?
Yes, if they were old enough to.
And would it be concerning to you if the child came with those injuries and was unable to explain the injuries?
Yes.
Doctor, isn't it true that with children, they give you an answer the first time, they give you an answer the second time, and you ask them repeatedly the same question, they're going to change their answer, aren't they?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, doctor. You can step down. Do you have any objection to allowing him to be excused? All right, and you're released, please.
Thank you.
Please stop. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our break for the evening, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Please remember all of my earlier admonitions tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you.